The Cation soldier laughed as he shot my dog Max in the head, but that alien fuck stopped laughing real quick when humanity reduced his homeworld to ash. I was drowning my sorrows in Astro Ale at some shithole bar on Zeta Station. You'd think synthahol would numb the pain, but it only made the loss of Max sting worse. He wasn't just some mutt. Max was my battle buddy, the only one who stuck by me through all the shit. "Brian Dixon?" a cloaked figure asked, sliding into the booth across from me. I couldn't make out the face under that hood, but the voice sounded female. "I have an opportunity for you." "Look, sweetheart, unless you've got a time machine to bring my dog back, I'm not interested," I growled. The figure lowered her hood, revealing feline features. "Great, a fucking Cation. My name is Speaker. I represent a rebel cell fighting against the Cation Empire. The bastard who killed your dog, General Razul, he's planning to invade Earth next." I clenched my jaw, and I should give a shit why. Speaker leaned closer. "Because we're offering you a chance to avenge Max and save your homeworld. Interested now, soldier boy?" I downed my drink. This was a suicide mission, but what did I have left to lose? The Cation Empire had already taken everything from me. It was time to make them pay. "I'm in," I said. "But if we're going to burn Razul and his Cation cronies to the ground, I'm going to need another drink first." Spiker smiled grimly. "Plenty of time for drinks later. Right now we've got a regime to topple and worlds to save. You with me?" I stood up, cracking my knuckles. "Lead the way, kitty cat. Time to show these alien fucks what happens when they mess with humanity's best friend." We boarded her sleek rebel ship, blasting off from Zeta Station. I strapped into the co-pilot seat as Speaker punched in coordinates. "Engaging hyperdrive," Speaker announced. "Next stop, the Cation homeworld. Hope you're ready for a bumpy ride." Stars stretched into blinding streaks of light as we jumped to light speed. I gripped my harness, stomach churning as the ship rattled around us. Speaker guided us through an asteroid field, the ship bucking as space rocks pinged off our shields. Damn, this kitty could fly. Imperial cruisers patrolled the sector, but Speaker evaded their sensor sweeps like a pro. During the quiet stretches, we started swapping stories to pass the time. "You know, I was a commander once," Speaker said, her eyes fixed on the controls. "Youngest in the Cation fleet. Thought I was fighting to protect my people, until I saw what Razul was really capable of." I raised an eyebrow. "What changed?" Speaker's ears flattened. "I watched him burn a village of innocent civilians just to make a point. That's when I knew I couldn't be a part of his regime anymore." I nodded, understanding her pain. Turned out this kitty and I had more in common than I thought. "Rebel life suits you," I said. "Takes guts to turn your back on everything you know." Speaker glanced at me, her green eyes softening. "Sounds like you know something about loyalty and loss." I looked away, Max's lifeless body flashing through my mind. "Yeah, well, I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to finish a mission." Suddenly our comms crackled to life with a distress signal. Speaker checked the coordinates, her fur standing on end. "It's coming from a rebel outpost on Zeta 9. They're under heavy fire from Imperial forces." I checked our fuel levels, calculating the risks. The smart move was to stick to our original plan, but I couldn't ignore a cry for help. Not again. "We have to go," I said, meeting Speaker's gaze. "We can't abandon our people." Speaker hesitated, then nodded. "Setting course for Zeta 9, but if we die, I'm blaming you." We dropped out of hyperspace above the dusty red planet and straight into a war zone. Imperial fighters swarmed the outpost like angry hornets. I strapped on my weapons as Speaker brought us in for a rough landing. Laser fire streaked past us as we charged out to join the fray. I spotted a battle-scarred Cation warrior rallying the rebel troops. Must be Speaker's contact. "Razithor," Speaker called out, ducking behind a supply crate. "Heard you could use a hand." Razithor eyed me warily, his blaster trained on my chest. "What's a human doing here?" I fired off a few shots, dropping an Imperial drone. Saving your furry ass, apparently. Razithor grunted but lowered his weapon. Together, the three of us fought back against the Imperial assault. I had to admit, Razthor was a damn good shot. Guess you didn't survive this long as a rebel without learning a few tricks. I rolled out of cover, taking aim at an Imperial sniper. But before I could squeeze the trigger, Razthor shoved me aside. A laser blast seared through the air where I'd just been standing, striking Razthor in the chest. I caught him as he fell, laying down cover fire. "You saved my life, why?" Razthor coughed, his breathing labored. "Speaker trusts you, that's good enough for me." I hauled Razthor back to the outpost. As Speaker and the rebels finished off the last of the Imperials, we'd won the battle, but the war was far from over. Speaker tended to my wounds, her touch gentle as she wrapped a bandage around my laser-scorched shoulder. "You're lucky," she said. "A few inches to the left and that blast would have killed you." I winced, the pain a reminder of how close I'd come to joining Max. Guess I owe Razthor a drink. Razthor limped over, his chest heavily bandaged. "I'll take that drink, but first we need to talk about your mission. I've got intel on Razul's base that might help." As Razthor laid out the details of the base's defenses and Razul's schedule, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. We had a real shot at taking that bastard down and avenging Max. I met Speaker's determined gaze, a silent understanding passing between us. We were in this together now, a human and a rebel Cation, united by loss and a thirst for justice. "All right," I said, checking my weapons. "Let's go kick some Imperial ass and finish this." The stolen Imperial uniforms chafed against my skin as Speaker and I infiltrated the military base. The forged IDs had gotten us past the first layer of security, but I knew our luck wouldn't hold forever. "All right, here's where we split up," Speaker whispered, her feline eyes glinting in the dim light. "I'll head to the reactor core and plant the charges. You make your way to the command center and grab those invasion plans." I nodded, checking my blaster. "Meet back at the rendezvous point in 30 minutes, and Speaker, be careful." She flashed me a grin. "Aren't I always?" With that, we parted ways. I moved through the corridors with purpose, relying on my military training to blend in with the Cation soldiers. A few close calls with patrolling guards had my heart racing, but I kept my cool. I had a mission to complete. The command center was heavily guarded, but I managed to slip past using a stolen access card and a bit of quick thinking. Once inside, I made a beeline for the central computer terminal. My fingers flew across the keys as I searched for the invasion plans. Just as I inserted a data drive to start the download, a deep voice behind me sent a chill down my spine. Well, if it isn't the human scum who killed my soldiers. I spun around to find myself face to face with General Razul. The bastard looked even more imposing up close, his cybernetic enhancements glinting in the harsh light. "Razul," I growled, my hand inching towards my blaster. "I've been looking forward to this." The Cation general laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "You think you can take me on, human? I'll enjoy crushing you like the insect you are." With a roar, Razul lunged at me, his cybernetic claws extended. I dodged, rolling to the side and coming up with my blaster drawn, but Razul was fast, inhumanly so. He knocked the weapon from my hand and slammed me against the wall, his claws digging into my throat. "You're weak," he snarled, his breath hot against my face. "Just like that pathetic creature you called a friend." Rage boiled up inside me at the mention of Max. With a burst of strength, I head-butted Razul, feeling a satisfying crunch as his nose broke. He staggered back, giving me just enough space to launch myself at him. We traded blows, fists and claws flying in a brutal dance. Razul was stronger and faster, but I had something he didn't, the burning desire for revenge. Every punch I landed was for Max, for the innocent lives Razul had taken. But even with my fury fueling me, Razul's cybernetic enhancements gave him the edge. He slammed me to the ground, his claws tearing into my flesh. I tasted blood, my vision going hazy. Suddenly the base shook with a massive explosion. Alarms blared as the lights flickered and died. Speaker had done it. In the chaos, I summoned the last of my strength and surged upward, catching Razul off guard. I wrapped my hands around his throat, squeezing with every ounce of my rage. This is for Max, you son of a bitch, I snarled, watching the life fade from Razul's eyes. I staggered to my feet, grabbing the data drive with the invasion plans. The command center was in ruins, flames licking at the walls. I had to find Speaker and get the hell out of here. I stumbled through the crumbling corridors, my wounds screaming with every step. The base was coming down around me, the explosions growing closer. Just as I thought I was done for, a familiar figure emerged from the smoke. "Brian!" Spiker shouted, her fur singed and her uniform torn. "We have to go now." Together we raced towards the exit, dodging falling debris and the occasional Imperial soldier. The base groaned and shuddered, the walls collapsing inward. We leapt through the final doorway just as the structure gave way, the force of the explosion throwing us clear. We hit the ground hard, rolling to a stop in a cloud of dust and ash. For a moment we just lay there, gasping for breath. Then, slowly, painfully, I pushed myself up to look at Speaker. "We did it," I croaked, holding up the data drive. "We got the plans." Speaker managed a weak smile, her green eyes bright with triumph. "And Razul?" "Dead," I said, my voice hollow. "But so is Max, and nothing will ever bring him back." Speaker reached out, her hand resting on my shoulder. "I know, but you avenged him, Brian, and you helped save countless lives by stopping Razul's invasion." I nodded, too exhausted and battered to argue. We had struck a blow against the Cation Empire today, but the fight was far from over. For now, though, all I wanted was a stiff drink and a moment to grieve for my fallen friend. Leaning on each other for support, Spicker and I limped away from the smoking ruins of the base, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The stolen Imperial ship rattled as Brian punched in coordinates for the rebel base, hidden deep within a treacherous asteroid field. Spiker slumped in the co-pilot's seat, her fur matted with blood and grime. They had barely escaped the collapsing base with their lives and the precious intel. "You sure this rebel hideout of yours is safe?" Brian asked, eyeing the looming asteroids warily. Speaker nodded, wincing as she shifted in her seat. "It's the only place the Empire hasn't managed to find. We'll be safe there for now." Brian guided the ship through the twisting labyrinth of space rocks, relying on Speaker's directions and his own piloting skills. After a series of close calls and daring maneuvers, they finally docked in a hidden hangar bay carved into the heart of a massive asteroid. A welcoming party greeted them, a motley crew of aliens from across the galaxy. Spicker embraced a tall insectoid rebel, murmuring words of relief. Brian hung back, feeling out of place among the tight-knit group. In the base's command center, Brian and Spiker presented their findings to the rebel leaders. A holographic display of Earth rotated slowly as they laid out the details of the Empire's invasion plans. "The Cations are moving against Earth," Spicker said, her voice grave. "We don't have much time." The rebel leaders erupted into heated debate, their voices overlapping in a cacophony of doubt and fear. Some questioned the authenticity of the intel, while others argued about the best course of action. "We can't trust this human," a reptilian rebel hissed, jabbing a clawed finger at Brian. "For all we know, he could be an Imperial spy." Brian bristled, stepping forward. "Listen, Scaleface. I lost everything to the Empire. I'm here to make sure no one else has to go through that hell." Spiker placed a calming hand on Brian's chest. "Brian risked his life to get this information. Without him, we'd be flying blind." The rebels fell silent, considering Speaker's words. Finally, a grizzled veteran spoke up. "If Speaker vouches for him, that's good enough for me. What's your plan, human?" Brian took a deep breath, the seeds of an idea taking root. "We need to take out the Cation fleet before it reaches Earth. I propose infiltrating their flagship and uploading a virus to its central computer. It'll turn their ships against each other, buying us time to mount a proper defense." The rebels exchanged glances, some skeptical, others intrigued. The veteran nodded slowly. "Bold plan. Risky, but it might just work. We can spare a strike team and a stealth ship for this mission." Spiker stepped forward, her eyes locked on Brian's. I'm going with you. You'll need someone who knows Cation tech to get that virus in place. Brian opened his mouth to protest, but the words died on his lips. He saw the determination in Speaker's eyes, the unspoken connection between them. He nodded, a small smile tugging at his lips. As they prepared to depart, alarms suddenly blared throughout the base. The command center erupted into chaos as rebels rushed to battle stations. "Imperial ships incoming," a frantic voice crackled over the comms. "They've found us." Brian and Speaker raced to the hangar, their strike team close behind. But as they rounded the corner, they skidded to a halt, their blood running cold. There, standing amidst the smoking wreckage of rebel ships, was Razul. The Cation general grinned, his cybernetic enhancements glinting in the harsh light. "Did you really think you could escape me, human?" he snarled, his claws flexing. Brian reached for his blaster, but a familiar voice stopped him cold. "I wouldn't do that if I were you." Razthor stepped out from behind Razul, a cruel smile on his feline features. Speaker gasped, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Razthor, how could you?" The traitorous Cation chuckled, his blaster trained on Speaker's heart. "Did you really think I'd turn my back on my own kind? The Empire rewards loyalty, Speaker, something you never understood." Brian and Speaker exchanged a glance, a silent understanding passing between them. As one, they dove for cover, blaster fire erupting around them. The strike team sprang into action, engaging the Imperial forces in a desperate battle. Brian and Speaker fought their way through the chaos, their eyes locked on Razthor's retreating form. They cornered the traitor in a dead-end corridor, their blasters raised. Razthor sneered, his finger tightening on the trigger. "It's over, Razthor," Speaker said, her voice trembling. "Surrender and we'll show mercy." Razthor laughed, a harsh grating sound. "Mercy from you? I'd rather die." He lunged forward, his blaster spitting fire. Brian moved to shield Speaker, but she was faster. With a cry of anguish, she fired, the laser bolt striking Razthor squarely in the chest. The Cation crumpled, his eyes wide with shock. Speaker knelt beside him, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I'm so sorry." Brian placed a hand on her shoulder, a silent comfort. Around them the battle raged on, but for a moment all he could see was Speaker's pain. They had won the day, but at a terrible cost. As they boarded the stealth ship, ready to embark on their desperate mission, Brian knew that the hardest battles were still to come. The sleek Cation stealth ship glided through the void of space, its matte black hull blending seamlessly with the darkness. Inside, Brian, Speaker, and their hand-picked strike team prepared for the most daring mission of their lives, infiltrating the Cation fleet's flagship and uploading a virus that would turn the enemy's weapons against them. Brian checked his blaster rifle for the 100th time, his heart pounding with a mixture of anticipation and dread. Speaker, her feline eyes glinting with determination, placed a hand on his shoulder. "We can do this," she said, her voice steady. "For Max, for the rebellion, for every soul the Empire has crushed." Brian nodded, drawing strength from her words. The strike team, a motley crew of rebels from across the galaxy, gathered around them, their faces set with grim resolve. As they approached the massive flagship, Brian's comm crackled to life. "Stealth systems engaged," the pilot reported. "Prepare for insertion." The team moved to the airlock, their weapons at the ready. With a hiss of decompressing air, they boarded the Cation ship, their boots clanging against the metal deck. Almost immediately, alarms blared throughout the vessel. Imperial soldiers swarmed the corridors, their blasters spitting deadly fire. Brian and Speaker led the charge, their weapons blazing as they cut a path through the enemy forces. The strike team fought with a savage intensity, fueled by years of oppression and loss. Rebels fell, their bodies littering the halls, but they pressed on, driven by a shared purpose. At last, they reached the central computer system, a vast chamber filled with blinking consoles and humming machinery. Brian raced to the main terminal, his fingers flying over the keys as he began uploading the virus. Suddenly, a massive explosion rocked the ship, throwing Brian and Speaker to the ground. Through the smoke and debris, a figure emerged. Razul, his cybernetic enhancements gleaming in the flickering light. "You didn't think you could escape me that easily, did you?" The Cation general snarled, his claws flexing. Brian charged forward, engaging Razul in a brutal hand-to-hand battle. They traded blows, fists and claws clashing in a deadly dance. Razul's strength was incredible, his cybernetic limbs delivering crushing impacts. As they fought, Speaker worked frantically to complete the virus upload. But as the progress bar ticked towards completion, a terrible realization dawned on her. The virus, once unleashed, would not discriminate between Cation and rebel ships. It would destroy them all. Time seemed to slow as Speaker faced an impossible choice: the lives of her friends and allies, or the chance to strike a crippling blow against the Empire. With a heavy heart, she made her decision. Speaker's fingers danced across the keyboard, overriding the virus's safeguards. Tears streamed down her face as she condemned the rebel fleet to destruction, but she knew there was no other way. The virus surged through the Cation fleet systems, turning their weapons against each other. The flagship shuddered as its own turbolasers raked across its hull. In the chaos, Brian finally gained the upper hand against Razul, delivering a final crushing blow. But the victory was short-lived. As the virus spread, the rebel ships caught in the crossfire began to explode one by one. Brian, his body battered and broken, collapsed to the deck. Speaker rushed to his side, helping him to his feet. "We have to go," she urged, her voice thick with emotion. They stumbled through the disintegrating ship, dodging falling debris and raging fires. At last they reached the escape pods, Speaker practically dragging Brian's wounded form. As they jettisoned away from the doomed flagship, Brian and Speaker watched in horror as the rebel fleet was consumed in a cataclysmic explosion. The Cation ships, too, tore each other apart, until nothing remained but drifting wreckage and the cold, uncaring stars. In the aftermath, a passing freighter picked up their escape pod's distress signal. Brian and Speaker, numb with grief and exhaustion, were pulled from the brink of death. But as they looked out upon the shattered remains of the two fleets, the true cost of their victory began to sink in. The Cation Empire lay in ruins, but so too did the rebellion they had fought so hard to build. Haunted by the lives they had sacrificed, Brian and Speaker set out into the war-torn galaxy, their hearts heavy with the knowledge that their mission, though successful, had come at a terrible price. The scars of battle, both physical and emotional, would stay with them forever, a grim reminder of the lengths they had gone to in the name of vengeance and freedom. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.